forward. This is Talking Foreign Policy, an Internationalist Perspective on Canada's Role Abroad. And today we're going to be talking about recent repression of Palestine Solidarity, anti-genocide activism in this country in recent weeks. There's, of course, been huge mobilizations, many people protesting, opposing the Canadian government's role in supporting Israel's violence in Gaza. And many people have faced repercussions, people being fired, people being suspended from their academic appointments, people being harassed in different ways, people being arrested. John Clarke is a longtime organizer, former organizer with the Ontario Coalition Against Poverty, a longtime activist in Toronto. He just published a piece on Counterfire titled Palestine Solidarity Under Attack in Canada. So excited to have on John to discuss some of this repression. First of all, John, thanks for coming on. And can you talk a little bit about the criminalization of Palestine solidarity that we've seen with the Indigo incident, Calgary, and others?
Yes, I mean, I think what's really significant is that you've obviously got the ongoing campaign of slander. You've got a campaign as well that seeks to go after people's positions, people's jobs, in some cases even people's immigration status. Those kinds of things are happening. But what we're actually now seeing is, I think, a very major leap forward, or backward, I should say, in the sense that we're now dealing with a situation where we're really arriving at a threshold where we're on the verge of the state determining that expressing disagreement with the political ideology of Zionism will be treated as hate crime. I mean, that sounds almost hyperbolic thing to say, but it's literally the case. Just in the last while, you have someone arrested in Calgary at a protest for chanting the words "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Now, I understand if you're a Zionist or an Israel supporter, you don't like that slogan. I understand it has implications that don't please you. But to actually come out and have a situation where the police come and arrest somebody for saying that is, I think, just unbelievably monstrous. And the police disclosure actually showed them saying that this person was repeatedly chanting an anti-Semitic slogan and seeking to get other people to join in with the chanting. I mean, that's the crossing of a threshold. It's absolutely monstrous. I know that organizations like the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, with the emphasis on the former, has always wanted that to be the case, but that's what we're actually arriving at. And now this incredible situation in Toronto where 11 people are charged after they allegedly put posters and paint on the window of Indigo books because the owner is associated not just with support for Israel, but actually recruiting for the Israeli occupation forces. This person, Reisman, has been challenged many, many times on this very front. Now, whatever one wants to say about putting some paint on somebody's window, that's not really the issue here, because they're going after it on the basis of it being a hate crime. You had a kind of preliminary bombardment in the media where it's being declared a de facto anti-Jewish action. And then you have these arrests made, and they don't just make arrests, they do dawn raids in a way that you would normally associate with taking down a terror cell or an armed, dangerous criminal gang. They come to people's homes, they kick doors in, they confiscate people's computers, cell phones, they handcuff people, they take them away as if this was a major sweep being taken up. So it's absolutely and utterly monstrous. And then some of these people are now facing the possibility of loss of employment because they're academics. We see one person at York University now at least being suspended. So, I mean, this is just absolutely monstrous stuff. I think it becomes an issue where Palestine solidarity, the building of Palestine solidarity is vital, but it goes beyond just Palestine solidarity, and it becomes whole question of very fundamental rights of freedom of speech, of assembly and academic freedom, all being called into question because of what's happening. And I think it's absolutely imperative that this be challenged and it be defeated.
I agree. I certainly agree. This is somewhat the Indigo instance is somewhat a culmination of a kind of like frenzy over the past handful of weeks. In your piece, you mentioned the Davide Mistrice at the Maple, who kind of listed a whole bunch of people who've been targeted, employment, different stuff like that. Can you cite a couple of examples of that, of other individuals who've sort of been targeted for their employment over this question in recent weeks?
Well, yes, we see somebody persecuted by the Toronto District School Board for defending school students. So there you have a situation where, again, the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, they post this video of high school students walking out for Palestine who are chanting, Trudeau, Trudeau, you can't hide, we charge you with genocide. And they absolutely outrageously state categorically that these students are chanting the words, Judah, Judah, you can't hide, an anti-Semitic slur, obviously. And they present that, and then when it can't hold up, they withdraw it. But this thing got 1 million views. And some of these students who could be identified on that video face threats. That kind of thing is happening all the time. We have the executive director of the Art Gallery of Ontario, an Indigenous woman, being driven out because of speaking out in favor of Palestine. We have a doctor with the University of Ottawa going after this person's job, again, just for making fair comment in solidarity with Palestinians in the Gaza context. So, I mean, the actual overt criminalization is an enormous danger. But for every example like that, there's literally dozens of situations where people's jobs are on the line, where people are being intimidated, where people are being subject to character assassination. I mean, I don't think you can exaggerate. I mean, most people who are coming out in favor of the Palestinian cause are people who are progressive in their outlook, at least people who are for whom the very idea of hate crime is something repugnant and offensive and awful. And to have this thrown at people and to have people's employment threatened and their reputations threatened is just absolutely monstrous. I mean, this is really where we have to arrive at a situation where we acknowledge that there is a definition of the term anti-Semitism. If you go to a dictionary, it'll say something like hostility or prejudice directed towards Jewish people. And that is indeed something repugnant and something that needs to be challenged. But to then argue that a particular ideology that subscribes to the notion that the colonial dispossession of the Palestinian people was justified, and to maintain that is justified, and to do so on the basis of saying that anyone who disagrees can't even express their opinion because to do so is criminal, and it's just an act of political gangsterism that is so deeply offensive and so toxic and so harmful that it must be challenged.
And so what do you think? I mean, the best way to challenge, we've seen that despite these attacks, we had this huge march in Ottawa on Saturday, biggest Palestine demonstration in Ottawa history, maybe the biggest or one of the biggest anti-war demonstrations in Ottawa history. What do you see as the best way to challenge kind of at a macro level and maybe also a bit of a micro level?
I'm really glad you make that point in your question, Yves, because I think it's absolutely essential. Is that there is, I think, a certain desperate quality to what's going on here. I mean, the truth is that the numbers of people taking to the streets are enormous. This is not just some protest. This is a social movement in solidarity with Palestine that's springing up, and it's growing in momentum, and it's absolutely wonderful and magnificent. And so you've got you've got the sort of the Zionist organizations, but also the Canadian establishment itself, strategically considering Israel to be an asset and determined to defend it and determined to do everything it can to stop a Palestine solidarity movement. You've got them acting with a kind of a quality of desperation. So I don't think we should be at all pessimistic. I think this is very serious and I think it needs to be challenged, but I think things are going our way. I think the movement of solidarity with Palestine internationally is reaching incredible dimensions. It's incredible in Canada, but in the Middle East, it's a sweeping movement at the moment. I mean, it's so a great deal of confidence in this. But I do think that we need to make a practice of not letting these things slide. I think when these kind of challenges happen to people's jobs, certainly when they're criminal challenges, we have to see that as an incredibly important site of struggle. We have to put all the resources and effort we can into defending people when they're under that kind of attack. And I think we need to as well engage in our movement a huge job of public education in terms of making the case for why anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism, and why anti-Zionism is in fact a totally valid and enormously important perspective to put forward. So I think we're coming at this from a position of considerable strength, and I don't think they're going to intimidate people. I don't think they're going to succeed, but we have to actually draw the line as vigorously as we can and fight back as forcefully as we can as part of the process of building the movement.
And I know just before you were saying there's a walkout at York in response to York acceding to the police arresting of York employees over the Indigo incident. And I know on Thursday there's a press conference rally, Jews Against Genocide, in front of the Indigo. Here in Montreal, there's also a rally in front of Indigo. So it's like, if you're going to attack protesters for putting up some placards around the CEO of Indigo's funding of the Israeli military, then you know, we will amplify or rekindle the boycott of Indigo. Any final words in terms of the direction of the solidarity movement?
Well, the only thing I think I would like to say by way of conclusion is that I mean, right now, when you've got 15,000 people slaughtered in Gaza, where you've got this killing machine that half these people are children, and they're pulling the bodies of little children out of the rubble, and for anyone who enables that, who defends that, to point a finger of accusation at someone who's challenging it is doubly vile. So I think we need to defend ourselves, but I also think we need to accuse the accusers. What they're enabling is vile. What they're enabling is colonialist, and what they're enabling is thoroughly racist to the core, and they need to be challenged. They can't just point the finger at us. They've got to get it back in their face.
Thanks for that. This was Talking Foreign Policy, International Perspective on Canada's Role Abroad, and John Clarke, longtime organizer. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot.